Please join me in welcoming Prof Matie Hoffman. Tonight, Prof Matie's topic is South Africa's dark sky regions, a valuable asset for astro and ecotourism. Prof Matie will be taking us on a journey into space to explore the mysteries of our night skies. Truly, dark skies are becoming increasingly rare in our busy planet. South Africa, we are blessed to have vast open and dark spaces where the breathtaking beauty of our night skies can be admired and appreciated. Come and hear how astro-tourism is becoming increasingly important and why we should be protecting our dark skies. Prof Matie is a lecturer at the Department of Physics at the University of the Free State and director of the Naval Hill Planetarium. He is also co-author of a book, Sterre en Planete, and a regular guest on RSG's Sterre en Planete program. Welcome and looking forward to the talk. Over to you, Matie.
Hi, Dankie. Thank you. It's a privilege to be here tonight. I will just load my presentation.
Thank you. It's showing?
Okay, so it's showing. Okay, then I will start. You have the title there. I'm from the Naval Hill Planetarium and the Department of Physics at the University of the Free State. In the background, you see a dark sky map of South Africa that has been produced from satellite data. You can guess that the grayish area are the darkest regions that actually fill a very large fraction of South Africa, especially in the Northern Cape and Karoo areas, but also some dark, very dark areas in almost all provinces except for maybe Gauteng, which is mostly an urban environment. Now, just something more about Naval Hill Planetarium. Some of you will know Bloemfontein and Naval Hill, almost in the center of the city. Naval Hill is one of 2 or maybe 3 game reserves, not just nature reserves, but game reserves, totally surrounded by a city. In the center there, you can already see the dome of the Naval Hill Planetarium. There's a nearby photo taken by a drone, beautiful site. There's an environmental education hall that has been built 2 years ago, and that is being used by the provincial government's Department of Tourism and Environmental Education. You can see that we are indeed in a game reserve, beautiful dome. The wildlife often visit the site. Before the planetarium was founded in 2013, there was an old telescope building that was established by the University of Michigan in 1928. You can see the beautiful architecture, and inside the building you can still see the old telescope. That old telescope was the biggest refractor or lens telescope in the southern hemisphere. Unfortunately, it was dismantled in 1976. There you can still see a photo of the telescope within the dome, which could rotate, which could open. But it has been refurbished, and we established the first digital planetarium in sub-Saharan Africa in Bloemfontein. Many people think an unlikely place to have the first digital planetarium, but we managed to do that, and that was now already 7 years ago. The old telescope have been re-established as a big exhibit in front of the building, so it's like a landmark there. And for all of this to have happened, we needed a lot of sponsors and donors, and all 3 levels of government was involved. And important for tourism, because that was one of the motivations for this project, is that the department, it's now DESTIA, it includes then environment, tourism, small business, and related portfolios. We have a bigger vision for the future, and that is to establish the so-called Free State Center for Earth and Space Now, if you include Earth and space, you include almost everything, and it makes provision for tourism, education, etc. Well, the first two solid phases is completed, and that is the planetarium in that building and the environmental education hall over there. Now, before I proceed with things happening in South Africa or which may happen in South Africa, just a short introduction to the concept of international dark sky places. The International Dark Sky Places Conservation Program recognizes excellent stewardship of the night sky. The International Dark Sky Organization, and you see the web link up there, and you can just Google International Dark Sky Organization, and there you can see a few categories: international dark sky communities, dark sky parks, dark sky reserves, dark sky sanctuaries, and urban night sky places. Now, in Bloemfontein, we have two urban night sky places. The most remote and darkest region on the planet can be classified or can be declared international dark sky sanctuaries if they affiliate with the International Dark Sky Organization. Now, for tonight, I'm mostly going to focus a bit on item 2 and on item 5. International Dark Sky Parks. An IDA, that stands for International Dark Sky Association. An IDA, International Dark Sky Park, is a land possessing an exceptional or distinguished quality of starry nights and a nocturnal environment that is specifically protected for its scientific, natural, educational, cultural heritage and or public enjoyment. Okay, so that is a mouthful. Okay, but just by the way, the background there is of the largest dark sky park in the world, Death Valley in California. Now, there are already quite a number of international dark sky parks. The vast majority of them are in the United States, and most of the rest in Europe, and then a few in the East and Australia and New Zealand. And relatively recently, 2 have been added to that list, and that one is in Namibia and the other one is actually in South Africa. I'm just quickly showing you many names. You can go and find more information if you would like to visit one of these. I would have visited one of these dark sky parks in Canada, the Jasper National Park. Now, on a lighter note, this is the first year I do not visit a national park in Canada due to COVID. All the other times it was because I didn't have enough money. But I hope I will still be able to visit this park or a similar park in the near future to see how they are doing things. Now, naturally, a national park has some natural beauty of importance that can draw tourists, but the idea with a dark sky park is to add the experience of the sky to that. Just an illustration of where Jasper National Park is. It's actually the biggest dark sky park in Canada. I'm not sure whether it's the biggest national park. There's an actual map with a few of the tourist visiting points. And here is one of the dark sky viewing points, Pyramid Lake and Pyramid Lake Island. Fantastic beauty. And we could ask, well, can we hope to do anything like this? Well, South Africa has a beautiful natural heritage, beautiful national parks, but actually our night sky is more beautiful than they have in the Northern Hemisphere. So let's dream big and see what can be obtained within, say, 5 to 10 years in South Africa. As I've mentioned, we only have one dark sky park that I'm aware of in South Africa, and that was through a private initiative. But it's part of the Kalahari Trans-Frontier Park. And I was a bit surprised to find this information, and there's some information, and actually they are associated, they were accredited by the IDA. Now let's look at a few things in South Africa that gives a context against which we can think about astrotourism and the ways in which it can be linked to your community, to the national parks and private nature reserves and game reserves. South Africa is internationally well placed due to its strategic location and dark skies over vast regions for international astronomy. That is why the South African Astronomical Observatory in Sutherland showed remarkable growth from the start of this century. And in 2007, soon after the Southern African Large Telescope, a world-class telescope, one of the few biggest optical telescopes on the planet, was established, they approved the Astronomical Geographic Advantage Bill. And according to that bill, which can eventually include many places of astronomical importance, but at that stage, it mostly focused on the facility at Sutherland and also the Meerkat and SKA site near Carnarvon. You can see there is a core area with a 3-kilometer radius around the Southern African Large Telescope. So they decided to make the biggest telescope on the continent the center point to define the various regions. Now, there are very strict regulations of what is allowed concerning outdoor rides in that region. Very, very stringent regulations. Then still significant limiting regulations for an area with a radius of 75 kilometers. And then there's a wider region of a few hundred kilometers, 250 kilometers. And where it is still within the Northern Cape, it's automatically included as a protected area. In the Western Cape, due to a much larger population, they hope for voluntary compliance. Okay, and then there's a very large area called the Karoo Central Astronomy Advantage Area. And that comes from the initiative by the Square Kilometer Array Organization. You know that South Africa is one of the 2 sites that was chosen by this international collaboration. The site is west-northwest of Carnarvon and almost in the center of this vast area. Sutherland lies just outside it. The focus in this area is mostly on radio silence, but it's also a dark region, which is important for Sutherland. Now let's look at the dark sky map for South Africa. Without going into all the technical details, you can clearly see the bright, very bright and large areas around the biggest cities. And the biggest concentrations, of course, around Cape Town, around Pretoria and Johannesburg, and then all along the coastline of KwaZulu-Natal, and mostly around the Durban area. And then the greenish-gray area go over large regions of the country, including the Free State, but one could say mostly Free State and Northern Cape, and also a bit here in the Eastern Cape regions and a part of the Western Cape. So as far as dark regions is concerned, South Africa has a very big advantage. And now one can ask, where are the astronomical facilities? Where is the know-how, astronomical know-how to do something with our wonderful opportunities? and where are the national parks. Now here's a map. I hope it's complete enough, indicating the national parks. And the next map, I've just zoomed in a bit more there. National parks that is relatively close to where there are astronomical activities is Mukala, well, being not too far from Bloemfontein. And then near Sutherland, the Tankwa National Park. And then in Cape Town, there's the Southern African Astronomical Observatory's headquarters. They don't do much astronomy there, but the know-how is there, and then there you have Table Mountain. So that just creates an environment where it is a dark, you can have an urban dark sky region or a dark sky park, not too far from where you have people who could train guides with know-how about the night sky. Let's zoom in the central regions. Now we plan and we are trying to funding for initial phases of a tourist project. We are already well established for educational purposes and academic purposes, but we have fantastic facilities to make a contribution to astro-tourism. We already do it on a relatively small scale at the planetarium. And we also have another site, the Boyden Observatory, that I will soon show you a few pictures of. Here you can see Bloemfontein. Of course, Naval Hill is in the city, but we can consider that to be an urban dark sky area. And it may be a good idea to get an official affiliation of that from the International Dark Sky Organization. Just outside the city, outside the most light polluted area, we have the Boyden Observatory. And here you can see the Mukala National Park, which is in a very dark region. So one can just keep that in mind as maybe one of the first national parks that could apply for dark sky park status. Now, the colors here indicate the sky glow as you would experience it looking from the ground towards the sky. It's not what you would see from the satellites. That looks different. There you see bright and dark regions. Here you see a fading because you can see the sky glow of a town from far away. So in this area, say near Bloemfontein, there you would still experience sky glow even if you are in an area without lights. Now we can zoom into these regions, but just let's look at the real satellite photos taken from space. So this is the lights that you would see from space. And there you can see the Bloemfontein and Bontebello regions. We can zoom into that region. Okay, first, let's just look back. That is from space. Think about that region. And now we zoom a bit in and look from the ground what the sky glow would look like. Here's the sky glow within Bloemfontein. There's the airport, and there's Marselspoort. And it's in that region where we have the Boyden Observatory. Naval Hill is over here at the bottom left. And the sky glow there is a bit less than in many of the other areas in Bloemfontein. That is Philip Saunders. Okay, here's again what it looks from a satellite, Bontebello area, Bloemfontein area, and that little red cross there, that's where we have the Boyden Observatory, which is a very good site for tourists to visit. The sky glow image, Bontebello at the bottom right here, and here's the sky glow. It's now just the Marselspoort area and Boyden Observatory. Now here, and the boundary of this sky glow area, I wish it was totally outside the sky glow. We have a little hill, there is a white dot, that's our big telescope building. Now these colors that we show here have a meaning in terms of how dark it is. And we could say, if you look at that red cross there, Boyden Observatory is between the blue and the green. they classify it as suburban regions, but we could look at a scale, artificial sky brightness scale. So we are about in the blue or green, and then you have a description on this scale, what can we see? And you can see, and that is a very good test, how dark it is. If you can see the Milky Way with its dark lane structure, you have still a relatively good sky. If you would go to Sutherland, you would probably be there in the darkest region, because the nearest big city is 300 plus kilometers away. Okay, let's zoom onto Boyden. Here you can see it a little bit more clearly at the edge of the sky glow. And if you look in certain directions, in the southern direction, or say in the northwestern direction, you will have a darker sky than if you would look, say, in the direction of Marshalspoort. We can zoom in further, and here you see a Google Earth type map or photo of the Boyden Observatory with the big telescope building there. Here's the main building, beautiful site with indigenous vegetation to visit. You can see our altitude there, coordinates, etc. I want to focus your attention on that structure there. That is our outdoor theater, where we can do outdoor presentations, and it's also accommodate an indoor auditorium. Now, there's a photo of the night sky from Boyden. You can see the Milky Way running across. Remember, this is now suburban. You can see dark lines in the Milky Way. And there on the horizon, you see the sky glow. You can also see it over the trees here, the orange, yellowish sky glow, which is bad, but it's not a disaster, because it's about 40, 50 kilometers as the crow flies to all those lights. A lot can be done about these lights if you can be declared as an area to be protected, and it's about putting certain type of covers on street lights, etc. So there are many successful examples in the world. Now just look here what light pollution does to the sky that you can see. This is an actual photo from a place, Ontario in Canada, when they had a blackout, big power disruption. And that's what the sky looks like if all the city lights come on again. It totally washes out the sky. So you can see, if you experience the dark sky, how beautiful it is, how much it reveals about our place in the universe. You know what a loss it would be if most of the Earth are totally wiped out by lights. So that's why the International Dark Sky Association was founded, to make people aware of the loss of dark sky and the loss of energy, the waste of energy, by projecting a lot of light to the moon, where it has no actual effect and where you don't want the light. Okay, here's a nice daytime photo. You can again see the big telescope building, a lot of smaller telescope buildings. We often receive visitors there. We can receive many more tourist groups. So if we eventually establish a good astro-tourism program in South Africa, we can be part of a network, and we can in particular train astro-tourism guides, because you have to know something to inform other people and make them enthusiastic about it. In our auditorium, here one of our PhD students are busy with an outdoor presentation. We do the indoor things in the planetarium and in the auditorium, but it's always the best if you have the real sky above you, you see the satellites fly over, and so on. Another example of an outdoor presentation. It's always a great experience. Here we combine it with a PowerPoint projection on a screen that you can't see in the photo. So we point out on in the presentation what objects we are looking at, and then we point it out with green laser pointers. Now, activities like this can happen all over the country, especially in the dark regions. It's always a good idea to combine such an experience with actual observing through a telescope. Looking at the planets, it creates a lot of excitement, and one should combine then open sky observing, unaided sky observing with limited telescope observing. Okay, let's come back to the planetariums in South Africa. What know-how is there? And if people visit, it would always be a good idea if they visit one of the planetariums where they can get some understanding of what's going on in the night sky, what type of objects are there. And at this stage, there are 4 substantial planetariums in South Africa. There are a few mobile planetariums. The Wits one is still closed at this stage due to the lockdown. We have reopened carefully. And similarly, the Ziku Planetarium and a recently founded planetarium in Sutherland, the Sutherland Planetarium. So, of course, Sutherland is a very good place to visit for astrotourists. The Bloemfontein region will be a very good place, and the Cape Town region. But let's just look at them. Okay, there's some information about the 4 planetariums. When they were founded, you can see the 2 that were added latest is the one in Bloemfontein on Naval Hill and the Sutherland Planetarium. Only 2 years ago, 7 years ago, and the other facilities a few decades old. But the one in Cape Town have also been refurbished to a modern digital planetarium around, I think it was 2016. So also a fantastic facility there. Now, I've played a little game here just to connect places in the country where it would not be difficult to present or develop astrotourist programs. You have quite a lot of astronomers working at the Hartebeeshoek Radio Astronomical Observatory. As a point of interest, the Krugersdorp Game Reserve is nearby, which will be relatively dark. And then I've already mentioned the facilities near Bloemfontein. And if you go a little bit out of Bloemfontein, for example, Boyden Observatory, it's still relatively dark. I've mentioned the Mukalu Game Reserve of National Park. Then you get the Meerkat site office near Carnarvon. They will present as tourism activities there. Sutherland, in the town with the planetarium, there are a few private initiatives there with telescopes and a visit to the South African Astronomical Observatory. One can't skip that. Not too far from there, then the Tankwa National Park. There's a private observatory in the Cederberg, and then the facilities in Cape Town, and of course the National Park on Table Mountain. Okay, actually I found some information about the astrophotographer that do some work in the Tankwa Karoo National Park, John Roger, and he presents programs and training in that regard. There's one of his photos. Now, if we look at the sky, that one can see from the dark regions. Well, I've just, as an example, taken the middle of the Karoo, because that's, you can imagine many tourists can end up either in one of the national parks, like the Karoo National Park or the Tankwa National Park, or even Guest Farm. And a very good season for us is in the month of May. So at 7 p.m., well after sunset, say an hour after sunset, in the middle of the Karoo, in the middle of May, you see the sky produced with the Stellarium desktop planetarium program. Wonderful sky because it extends from the Scorpion with the center of the galaxy in that region. You can see the dark bands in the Milky Way, the Southern Cross region, and it goes over to the brightest star in the sky, Sirius, and the well-known Orion region with the Three Kings. So a wonderful area to look at with the unaided eye. And one could explain to people a lot about that. So you could, for example, provide star maps to the people, that you give them, you empower them to take the knowledge with them, to go and transfer it to other people. You see the pointer stars are the Southern Cross. You can clearly see the constellation of the Scorpion, of Orion, the brightest stars in the sky, Sirius, Canopus, and a wonderful sight providing so much insight are the two Magellanic Clouds. It's almost a shock for even an amateur astronomer if they visit the Karoo from their own town or city, to see how really dark the sky is and how bright the Magellanic Clouds, which are actually galaxies outside our own galaxy. Now, in this region, that around the Southern Cross, one can have a lot of fun. And here's a concept that the Deep Sky section of the Astronomical Society of Southern Africa developed. Now, the Astronomical Society of Southern Africa includes both professional astronomers and amateur astronomers. And there's so much enthusiasm among that community to make a contribution to astro-tourism that other people involved in tourism and with the national parks, like your community, could create a wonderful collaboration with that community to develop the concept of astro-tourism. And a nice focus of that could draw international tourists is the Big Five of the African sky. Now, the Big Five of the African sky identifies 5 objects that is visible with an unaided eye. It's better if you look with binoculars, but you can still see it with an unaided eye. And it shows 5 different types of objects. For example, the Southern Pleiades is representative of open star clusters. And then first among the globular star clusters is the overwhelming Omega Centauri. The bright nebula are represented by the majestic Eta Carinae Nebula, the mysterious actually the Southern Cross, as you can see here, the edges of the Milky Way is indicated by the yellow curves there. Southern Cross with the 2 pointer stars included there, and here you can see all 5 of the Big Five of the African sky: the Milky Way, Omega Centauri, the Coalsack Nebula, the Eta Carinae Nebula, and the Southern Pleiades. Now there's a, if I just go back there, you can Google this and you'll find a manual about the Big Five, a short, compact manual that will give you more information about that. I will not use too much time now, but you can provide basic information about all 5 of these objects to provide some insight. Most people will look at these objects just because it's beautiful, but you have the more serious tourists that actually want to understand more. You can see, for example, the Southern Pleiades. First, what type of object it is, how big it is, how far it is, and its age. Okay, similar information for the others, and each presenter can decide for himself on at which depth he will want to provide information. Just look at Omega Centauri. You can see it with the unaided eye, but it's at a distance of 16,000 light years, and it contains 10 million stars. So it's so exciting to see a dim little dot that actually represents 10 million stars. And if you look at it through a 8-inch or bigger telescope, you can actually see the millions of dots of the individual stars, which is type of a life-changing experience. Okay, here's a wide angle, a wide field photo taken by one of South Africa's well-known astrophotographers, Untitled Chapter, with the band of the Milky Way running across. There you can see the Southern Cross, those 4 bright stars. That is the coal sack. That little dot there represents 10 million stars. That's Omega Centauri. There's the Southern Pleiades, and there's the Eta Carina Nebula. Okay, the Magellanic Clouds, the large one and the small one, clearly visible there. They are not included as part of the Big Five. A specialized type of tourist that may like to visit South Africa from abroad may be astrophotographers. Now, coming back to our own planned contribution to astrotourism. Okay, we actually presented a plan to the tourist authorities with different phases. And okay, you can see we have phases running from 2021 over 4 years, provided we get funding, but we do not need all the funding at the initially. Okay, we have a purely tourist focus, and then we have infrastructure and site development. Now this will benefit both education and academic purposes and tourism. And we have full dome content development as part of the project. That means we develop programs, videos about South Africa's natural beauty that we can show in planetariums in South Africa, and that can be made available to the few thousand planetariums all over the world. Let's just look at the tourism component, which is a prime focus now. It contains a component about dark sky reserves, tourism network and research, and astro-tourism training. Here I zoom just a little bit more in. So we hope we will get more stakeholders. We envisage workshops in collaboration with the departments of tourism, but it may take time. But actually, all these type of activities is taking place in a bit uncoordinated way, many individual initiatives, but it will be good if a more formal network is created for South Africa. Okay, at the end of our project, if we are successful in finding the funding, the project will foster a unique niche tourism asset in for astrotourism in Central South Africa. Okay, that's how far our influence can go, but we can of course work with people working in regions further from us. Okay, we'll have educational focus, but important for the tourist community to know is that we are well placed to provide training to tourist guides in astrotourism. Okay, thank you. That's about what I want to say, and then there's hopefully time for questions.
Thank you, Prof Matie. Very, very interesting and quite good to see. And obviously, light pollution is something that that we would have liked to take away, so that we don't have to travel that far to be able to see the stars. And then I have got a few questions. One that came in from Joan Mastu, that came in on email. He's asking, sorry, Joan's asking, she's asking, is there such an organization in this country for educating everyone on the great importance of reducing light pollution? In my neighborhood, in the Garden Route, we have many new residents who are turning this place into a Gauteng by the sea. We need strong bylaws to curb them, and we need to buy in of municipalities. What is the astronomical community doing about this?
Oh, that is such an enormous challenge to tackle that problem, but we should do it on high levels. What we can keep in mind, for certain regions, the astronomical geographic advantage bill may help, but it won't help areas like the George region or the Garden Route region. What one should link up with is the authorities that deal with outdoor lighting. You can think, okay, you have to, what one can keep in mind, often about 20% of the lights cause 80% of the problem, which make it a bit easier to tackle. In many towns and cities, I would say 80% plus of the sky glow is called by the, one can almost call it antique, high mast security lights in the townships, which is, they are very, very bad for sky glow because they are mounted almost horizontally and a large fraction of the light goes to the heavens. So that is one of the things we hope to achieve in the Bloemfontein area. It will mean a lot for Boyden Observatory, but I think if at high level of the government, national level and provincial government level, if there's a community that deals with lighting, it's in the engineering community that deals with all the different aspects of lighting, and they make contribution to regulations and so on. So one can hope to combine your aim of reducing light pollution also with something that people will buy more easily, and that is to save on electricity, to save money. You can imagine how much money is wasted by all the light that goes into the sky. You could use dimmer lights if you had better protection above the screens or the shields above that reflect all the light where it actually should be. So there are very good recommendations and also examples of laws that have been approved by various municipalities, even urban municipalities all over the world. We are just a bit behind all these people. So it would actually be great to have a local affiliate of the International Dark Sky Organization. I know quite a number of people that would be interested to contribute there, but of course it will require leadership. It will require a few people to spend a lot of time on that. Maybe once I retire, I might make a bigger contribution there. So let's take up the challenge on various levels, municipal level, talking to the engineers, talking to the provincial governments, talking to the national parks, etc. But at least we have the advantage of relatively dark national parks, and that should be protected. And if there are towns near it, they should, that's the first place to start, to get better regulations of what type of outdoor lights may be used.
Thank you for that answer, Prof. Then we've got a question from Thomas van der Walt. He says the latest national park that was declared, if I'm correct, he is correct, is situated around the SAAO area. It's at Carnarvon. It is not on Matie's map. Can anyone tell us more about this park? It will obviously be an important addition to Matie's list of possible night sky areas. I think he probably posted that before you mentioned the SAAO and at Meerkat.
Yeah, that's interesting news. I was not aware of that part, but it's they want tourism linked to the SAAO in Meerkat. And as you know, in tourism, it's always a good idea to have a few things that work together. You will draw more tourists if they can do more than just astro-tourism, if they can also do some wildlife viewing and so on, and have a nice, beautiful place to stay from where they can do the other things.
Thanks, Prof. I can just add to that, Thomas, that the Meerkat Park is indeed being proclaimed, and a first team has been to the park to do the first set of training, and Boland and one of our regions are already involved and would be looking at doing some courses within the Meerkat area. Then Charles Day As far as astrotourism training is concerned, are you working with FAGASA?
No, not specifically. I think that's where a lot without too much effort, if just the right people link up. There's so much enthusiastic people that can make a provision to train people for astrotourism. And you don't need, need to be able to speak with confidence, make it interesting, but you adjust to your level of knowledge. There's so much manuals available, so much information on the internet, easy to use apps on your cell phone, and beautiful books. And as I've mentioned, one can, for example, envisage that your society arranged a few training events in national parks. I mean, you visit these parks, you make contributions there, and you can contact people like ourselves or the Astronomical Society of South Africa to come and provide basic training. And from there, people learn on their own. And already within a few months, you can reach hundreds of people.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. And I think Elrina from Versveld, with your permission, she's asking, is there a possibility to have an email address to contact Prof Matie? So if you...
I will put it here in the chat.
That would be great. Thank you. I do...
If you type it.
I'll give you a second.
They can believe me, I type it correctly. There's a certain letter that people always think I forgot, but that's how it should be. It is absolutely correct how I enter it there now. Okay, I have posted it, so yeah, they are welcome to email me.
Thank you. That's great. Then Giel Mol, he says, I have actually met and talked with the night sky photographers in Tankwa. To what extent can dark sky tourism also involve training in night sky type lapse photography?
Yeah, that is a specialized thing. I can imagine that you could draw a few people, not say 20 or so, maybe a handful, and provide fantastic training. It's we have a few people in Bloemfontein, well, less than a handful that's working on that. And an exciting possibility is that these people, with what they produce, can make that available. Possibly one can get funding for that, or the planetariums can pay them something to make some of these time-lapse photography videos available for the full dome environment, so that it can be shared with a much wider audience. But I think South Africa has good expertise in astrophotography, and it could definitely be a drawing card for the more serious astrotourists.
Thank you. And I think
just by the way, last year, I think it was last year, there was a photo on the front page of the National Geographic magazine, a beautiful dark sky photo with one of the meerkat dishes in the front. And that photo was taken by an astrophotographer in Pretoria. And she's now relocating with her photographer husband to Oudtshoorn to be closer to the dark sky regions. So that's an example. I mean, to get a photo on the front page of the National Geographic magazine, you should be excellent.
Yeah, thank you. I do now see that there is a question that was posted also in the chat. Prof Matie, have you made contact with anyone in the Waterberg? How about Marikele National Park near Tabazimbi?
Wow, Marikele, I've only visited it once, early last year. It was a fantastic experience. I didn't know even about its existence. Such a beautiful place with the viewpoints. I know there's a camping site with quite luxurious tents. Yeah, it would be fantastic if, I mean, that's also in a dark region. I'm not sure exactly about the, of course you want cloud-free nights preferably, but there will be seasons. I can imagine it will be autumn and winter. In Bloemfontein, our autumn from May onwards is already a very good season for astronomy. And even in the summer, you have many cloudless nights. I can imagine that it will be similar in the Marikele area. Maybe they have a higher rainfall than we do. I'm not sure about that. And Marikele, it's not too far from, well, I'm not sure how far it is from Potchefstroom, where you also have astronomers. But often astronomers and amateur astronomers, the more serious one, make a contribution. If a national like a specialist with some know-how, either to come and present training to their tourist guides there, or maybe even present in a high tourist season a few astronomy presentations. Typically, tourist astronomy event would include a short presentation just to give some night sky, explaining for the people what to look out for on using the computer images. But the best is always to go out, look at the dark sky, point out the objects, provide some star maps, and then look at the objects through a telescope. What one should keep in mind, you will know not so many people have telescopes, and a good one will cost you 5,000 rand to a few tens of thousands of rand. But people visiting game reserves, most of them will have binoculars. And with binoculars, you can see, I think, 100 times more stars than you can see with the unaided eye. And you still, the advantages, you can see much more, but you still preserve your wider context. With a telescope, you zoom in so much, you don't recognize what you're looking at. But with the binoculars, you look at the three kings and you can still see there they are, just much bigger and much brighter. So one actually get information on the internet, and there's books also on that for what you can observe with binoculars. I think it's a relatively inexpensive way, and if you have a group of people, you can't have 20 telescopes, it would be too expensive, but maybe you can have 10 binoculars, and people can share. Once the pandemic is over, they can share binoculars. That's a very quick way to make progress.
Thank you. And then we've got a question from Barry. It is linked to Namibia. He's just asking, is there an astronomical place in Namibia where one of our great presenters comes from, Japie van Zyl?
Oh, yeah, such a loss. Sad that we lost Japie van Zyl. He was such an inspiration, and the people in Namibia are rightly very proud of him. I mean, he was appointed something like 3 years ago as the head of solar system exploration for NASA. It's such an achievement, and he was still so willing to work with ordinary people. We will think about ourselves as ordinary people when you work with someone like Japie van Zyl, but anyone with whom he talked, he let them feel special. Some distance south of Windhoek, Gamsberg, I think that's the word. Mm-hmm. And they're building a much bigger facility there now. Now, fortunately, it's not that close to the population centers, but there also at the university in Windhoek, there will be people that can make a contribution. Actually, I think Windhoek will be a very good place to establish a digital planetarium. And they recently, I think it's now about a year ago, we founded the African Planetarium Association to assist people that dream about the planetarium in their region. And one can think if Sutherland could establish a private planetarium. And that's a cool thing about the planetarium in Sutherland. It's totally private. And they achieved within a very limited budget, to do something really great. And they are quite popular in the world, because they have, usually these facilities cost many millions of rands. And with a tenth of that budget, they have a digital planetarium with a good image, and they make a good contribution to the tourism there in Sutherland. And actually, there's also in a similar situation is a planetarium in Ghana. That was also, it looks like a facility appropriate for a small little village, but they have a modern projector in there. And the African Planetarium Association has a specific group that will look at appropriate technologies for more affordable digital planetariums.
Thanks, Matie. And then our last question before I want to give Paul Colditz, who is also from Bloemfontein, our chairperson, a chance just to come online. The question is from David Hansen, and he came in through Facebook. How much of an effect does dust have on astro viewing? I found that the Kruger Park side of South Africa to be a lot darker and better for astrophotography than in the Namib Desert, the west side of, for example. To add to my question, if it does it count it to be the rating of classification?
Dust is very bad for astronomy, especially if there's already outdoor lights. I mean, you just get much more scattered lights. If it's totally dark, you may not directly that easily observe the dust, but it will still absorb a considerable fraction of the light. But that's not. If you are in a desert, well, the big observatories in Chile are in desert regions, but that does not necessarily mean they have so much loose sand than in the Namib. You get different types of deserts. So one will have to consider it. If you want to invest quite some money, you will have to look at all the factors that can have an effect on the risk of having a bad night. It's always a big disappointment if you get in tourists just for 2 days or just for one night for a specific event, and it's either cloudy or there's a dust storm. So that's something that one have to learn how to manage that. That's why you have to rather choose your highest frequency of events in the best seasons for open skies, and also always have a backup plan. That's why it's a good idea also to have a presentation, so that if it's cloudy, at least people have learned something, and you can provide them with star maps and some know-how to look at the sky a bit later on and apply what they have learned.
Thank you, Matie. And just a follow-up on that, that's just come in conjunction with a dust question. How does humidity affect star viewing?
Yeah, humidity is always also bad for astronomy and for observing. It just makes everything, the transparency of the atmosphere less, and also it makes sky glow worse. There's more molecules to reflect light. And yeah, just a remark before Paul Colditz says his word. He was actually at the opening event of our planetarium in Bloemfontein. I hope he remembered that.
Please join me in thanking Matie for the presentation tonight. I see there's lots of positive comments that we will forward to Matie. And thank you also to our members, the public and family for your participation tonight. Thoroughly enjoyed the company. Thank you. Good night. Goeie nacht en mooi loop.